All right, well, welcome to our deep stretch today. Things that are going to come in handy, a block if you have one. If you don't have a block, a thick book or a cushion of some sort will definitely be helpful. You'll also want to position yourself somewhere near a wall. So even if you're not able to see the screen, as long as you can hear me from your stretch of wall, that will definitely be super helpful towards the end of class. So this week, we're going to start things off a little bit differently than we normally do. In a traditional yin style practice, which is how we lead our deep stretch classes, postures are held for anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. But the way that we're going to get started today is with a little bit more movement. So we're not going to hold things as long because we really want to get into the deep connective tissues of the feet, the ankles, and the toes. So just a heads up, if you are ready to just like take a nap, totally either, just black out for the next 10 minutes or fast forward or whatever you need to do. So we're going to get started in a comfortable standing posture at the top of your mat. So make your way there. As I slide away from the screen, you might need to adjust your volume, so just be aware of that. And we'll get started in about 1 minute. All right, so finding yourself located at the top of your mat, just kind of notice if there are any immediate adjustments that you know you need to make. A lot of folks who've been practicing for a while have their little routine of shifts, shimmies, toe taps, wrist rolls. So just notice if you need to settle in any specific way. And then look down at your feet. Maybe shift a little bit from side to side, forward and back. Just notice if your feet are feeling stable, feeling sore, if maybe your toes are a different color than the rest of your feet. I know that sounds strange, but just really visualize what's going on with your foot situation this evening or afternoon, whenever you're watching. And then knowing, okay, I have feet, I have toes, that's great. Go ahead and bring yourself to Shavasana, neutral spine, shin parallels the floor. Palms are gonna flip forward and then let your eyelids close. As soon as your eyelids close, maybe find that your breath slows down a little bit. Can you soften your shoulders? Can you tuck your glutes, tuck your tailbone under ever so slightly? Maybe tone through your low belly ever so slightly. Breathe deeply in through your nose. And fully out through your mouth. Let's do that a few more times. Deep breath in through your nose. Out through your mouth. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. And then seal the lips. Continue breathing both in and out through your nostrils. See if you can focus so fully on that breath that your awareness of everything else just gently ebbs away. Whatever you were doing before, whatever stress was distracting you earlier in the day or the week, just visualize those things rising to the surface of your skin and then rolling off of you with the pull of gravity. Keeping your eyelids closed. Again, maybe shift a little forward and back, side to side. Notice how your feet, your toes, your ankles communicate with gravity to help keep you upright. For some of us, we might feel that there are some little sore spots in our feet. For others, it might just feel like, yeah, those are my feet, nothing to write home about. And then bring yourself to stillness once again. Take a nice breath in, sweep your arms all the way up. Look up, gently blink your eyelids open. And then as you exhale, bend your knees a lot, slowly forward fold. If you need to widen through your feet, that is just fine. Wonderful. Take a deep breath in, rise halfway up, palms to your shins or your knees. And then exhale, bend your knees deeply again. Hands come down to the mat. Step back, tabletop, just long enough to send your feet to one side and come to a seat. So if you are weird about feet, this might not be your favorite thing, but I guarantee it is so, so helpful to the health of your foot. So in this class, we talk a lot about connective tissue and how by holding postures for a while, we get deeper than just the muscle fibers. So your feet have tons and tons of layers of that connective tissue. So that means we have to take our time getting into that density. So what you're going to do here is you're going to pick up your right foot or your left, side one and side two, doesn't matter. And you're going to start working your fingers, your four fingers, gently in between your toes. Now, what I would recommend is starting with just the tips of the fingers first, especially if you've ever had any foot injuries, plantar fasciitis, anything like that. So just start by working your fingertips in between your toes. And then over time, you're going to notice that maybe you can slide a little bit more of your finger between the webbing of your toes. And this is just a forecast of where you're headed. Don't just go there all at once. Over probably the next 2 to 3 minutes, you want to eventually work your full finger knuckle essentially into the webbing of each toe so that when you curl your fingers around your foot, you can really have a romantic moment with the ball of your foot. So just like a good hand hold, that's what we're searching for between our left fingers and our right toes. But really take your time. Notice what toes widen first, what toes are just like, yeah, no, this is not my favorite thing. And as your fingers slide a little bit more deeply between your toes, you can start kind of using the ball of your hand to massage the ball of your foot. So the more you squeeze, you're going to feel the palm of your hand, the heat of that surface kind of pressing in to the big toe knuckle, the ball of your foot, where for a lot of us, our weight shifts forward. So feel free to give yourself a little time, a little attention, and by golly, just a little love as you enjoy maybe your first foot massage of 2020. I hope that's not true. These are valuable skills, folks, so love on your feet. So maybe those fingers have slid a little bit farther between the toes by now. You can also use your thumb to kind of press into any sore spots in the ball or the arch of your foot. Now, if you are pregnant, you don't want to go digging in too deeply with the thumb. So what I would encourage doing is just lots of squeezing with the palm of the hand into the ball of the foot. That's perfectly safe territory. Lovely. Now, very, very slowly, you're going to uncurl your fingers and start to slide them out from between your toes. And then extend that leg out and notice if you feel anything different. Can you spread your toes wider than you normally would? Curl them in, spread them out, maybe point and flex through that ankle. Just notice, aha, maybe there's some wind flow in your toe webbing. And then we'll just switch sides. So if you do the right foot first, now it's left turn. So again, just start with your fingertips going between the little creases of your toes here. Not forcing anything. And over time, maybe the fingers will slide a little farther through. And think about here, comparing the musculature of your foot to, say, the musculature of your calf, of your lower leg. So even just looking at your lower leg, sure, you can feel the bony parts on the front, but the back of your leg is entirely muscle tissue. But then compare that to your foot. It's very bony. It's going to be a lot more intricately shaped. There are going to be a lot more curves and little crannies and that kind of a thing. So just maybe marvel at how our feet aren't as soft as a lot of our more muscular places, and yet our feet carry our weight the most directly. The soles of our feet are the portals to what connect us to the rest of the world. So needless to say, there's a lot of potential for tension to build up the arches of the feet. In traditional Chinese medicine, practitioners and doctors use the foot as a roadmap to gauge the health of the rest of your body systems. So even if you're exercising like crazy, drinking a ton of water, eating according to whatever pyramid plate guidelines make you feel the best, it's still important to take time sometimes to really get into where your tension is living. So after a few more moments here, maybe pressing the right thumb into the ball of the left foot. Maybe notice if it took a longer or shorter amount of time to get in between those toes. And then nice and slowly, not pulling or forcing anything, release your fingers from the toes. Just like before, extend that leg out, spread the toes wide if you can. Maybe notice if on this foot it's harder or easier to wiggle your toes individually. Curl them in, spread them out. Wonderful. And then however you choose to get there, we're coming right back to that Shavasana, that mountain pose at the top of your space. And as you come onto your feet once again, just see if there's anything subtle or dramatic that you notice about your toes, your feet right away. Maybe the color, maybe the sensation, perhaps the fact that you can feel more floor under your foot. If it doesn't feel all that different, no worries. Mountain pose, palms face forward, chin parallels the floor. Big breath in, look up, reach up. And exhale, bend your knees a lot, forward fold. Fingers to or towards the floor here. Inhale, halfway lift, palms come to your shins or your knees. And then exhale, bend your knees, plant your hands on the floor, come back, tabletop pose. Lovely, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath your hips, and then focus on your toes here, on your feet. So for a lot of us, naturally when we come to tabletop, we untuck the feet. So you've got the top of your foot connected to the floor. Tuck your toes under here. Create a little bit of tension in your toe joints and the arch of your foot. Very good. Take a big breath in, drop your belly, lift your chin for cow pose. And then exhale, round it up and over, cat back. Twice more. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Last one, inhale, cow. Belly drops, chin really lifts. And exhale, cat, round up and over. And then come on back, neutral spine, keeping the toes tucked here. Start to, maybe you grab your block if you have one, but start to shift your hips back towards your heels. So for some of us, we might already start to feel a stretch through our calves, through our arches, maybe through our toes. For some folks, this doesn't really feel like much. So just know if you are feeling something here, feel free to stay. If you'd like to bring your hands up to a block, this can be a nice in-between step. If you'd really like to dial it up and up the ante on that arch and toe stretch, bring your hands to your thighs. Try to stack your shoulders on top of your hips. Now just know that that's going to get spicy at differing levels for everyone on different days. So if at any point you need to lean forward, the floor is there, the block is there, you take what you need. Now we are here for about 2 minutes, so breathe slowly and settle in. So this week we've been talking about vrata, or vowing ourselves to certain actions, beliefs, philosophies. So oftentimes poses like this really remind me that when we want to create change in our lives or in our world, the thinking about it, the inspiration behind it is beautiful. But the action behind making it happen can be very challenging, temporarily uncomfortable, and can make us question, why in the world did I think that was a good idea? And yet, if we really want to make change, we have to be about it and not just talk about it. So today we are being about nice flexible feet. We talked about it, now we're doing it. You're more than halfway through this posture, so give yourself mad props. Deep breath in, deep breath out. If you need to change anything about your posture, by all means, maybe shift more forward, maybe shift more back. One of the goals of yin is to find that stillness. So where is it that that starts? Mentally, physically, or do they take turns? If you have a block in front of you, set it off to one side. Bring your hands down to the mat, walk your palms forward, untuck your toes, tabletop. Oh boy. And then maybe tap out the tops of your feet if you would like here, or if you need to shift around, point, flex, curl, uncurl. Just feel what's going on in your feet, your ankles, your arches. Wonderful. So all that attention that we've been spending on our feet and lower legs, we're now going to shift it up into the quadriceps. So if you have a block, you're going to want to bring that block on its lowest level, wide ways between your ankles, so that you can take a seat in hero's pose. If you do not have a block, that's okay. You can slide a cushion, a blanket, a towel, your pet, a small child, anything like that. Just create yourself a wee little seat. Wonderful. And then the very first thing that you want to fine tune here is we want to make sure that before we really build this posture, we're targeting the right muscles. So make sure that you are sitting up nice and tall. You're going to either press down into your fingertips or just lift yourself up. So lift yourself up, tuck your tailbone under. So it's almost like you're doing that very America's Next Top Model, like so editorial pose. Draw your belly up and then sit back down. Good, so it might feel like you're hunching a little bit forward here. Roll your shoulders back. And start to lean back, fingers coming to the mat or maybe coming to a piece of furniture behind you. We do not have to go very far, especially with that block underneath your hips. Now, if you practice a lot and you feel comfortable doing this posture without a block at all, that's totally fine to remove it. But again, let's focus on the tops of the thighs here. So if you're not feeling a stretch through the tops of your thighs, keep leaning back into your hands, bridge your hips up, squeeze your glutes, tuck your tailbone more, and then set it back down onto the block. Wonderful. We want to create a long line on the front by engaging through the back. Hands might slide back just a little bit more. Head position is going to be up to you. You might keep your chin facing or keep your eyes facing forward. You might lift your chin a little bit more towards the ceiling. That's going to require a lot more stabilizer work in your neck. I don't recommend just letting your head hang heavy backwards for extended periods of time, but if you'd like to do that for maybe 3 breaths and then come back through center as a reset, that's totally fine. Just continue to breathe. I know it can get a little nerve-wracking sometimes, long stretches of quiet on the internet, but no worries. The internet has not crashed. We have not frozen. We're intentionally giving ourselves this time to aim for some stillness, to enjoy a little quiet. About halfway through here. Now, if you've lost that stretch in the tops of your thighs, now is a great time to do a little rearrange. If you're still feeling the stretch in the tops of your thighs, keep everything the same, just keep breathing. If you need to reset, if you need to up the intensity, walk your hands in, pick your hips up off your block, set it out to the side, and then widen through your heels enough that your hips can settle to or towards the mat between your ankle bones. Lovely, and then just repeat. Start to walk your hands back, lift your hips up, tuck your tailbone under, and then resettle your hips on the floor. Very good. And for our last minute here, let's make this a tiny bit more active. Notice if your shoulders are rounding forward. Likely they are, nothing wrong with that. Let's take a deep breath in, pinch the shoulder blades together, and think about sending your collarbone and your ribcage forward and up. So you should feel a little bit more action now happening in your shoulders, maybe through the front of your chest. Likely your arms start to get a little warm. So allow that to happen. Try to keep your head from jutting way far forward or drooping way, way back. Just keep it right about the middle. Keep drawing shoulder blades together, collarbones forward and up. It's all temporary. Keep breathing. In our last few moments here, maybe get a little excited about how nice this is going to feel when we let it go. Where are you feeling this the most? The top of your shoulders, your thighs, your knees. Take a big breath in. Then open mouth breath out. Start to walk your hands in. Wonderful. If your hips are on a block, go ahead and lift your hips up off the block, even if your hips were just on the floor. Everybody, let's meet in a tabletop pose just for a moment here. Again, just like we did a few minutes ago, point and flex, roll your ankles around, maybe tuck your toes under and revisit that foot stretch just for a moment. Just give yourself some time here to let all of that leg work go. Rolling the shoulders can feel nice to help get a little bit of that heat out. And then keeping your block somewhere handy, go ahead and come to a seat. Now, if you're on hardwood floors or on tile floors, I would recommend rotating on your mat about a quarter turn. If you have carpet or cushion, it doesn't matter so much what direction you face. So as we head into a straddle seat, we just want to make sure that we have some cushion for our heels. So we just worked into the tops of the thighs. Let's translate that more into the inner thighs and the backs of the legs, the hamstrings. So no need to go super wide here, no need to go crazy. We're just going to start to extend through the legs. So heels are going to travel away from each other into a little straddle seat. And really take your time here. Know that you don't have to start out super wide. You can start out as narrow as you'd like. Ideally, what we're looking for is as you lean forward about an inch or so, you start to feel your inner thighs stretch. And maybe even just sitting upright, you feel the backs of your legs stretch. Nice. Grab your block or your cushion. Set it on whatever level you would like. Take a big breath in. And then exhale, keeping your chest upright, relax your feet. Make sure you're not driving your heels forward, you're not pointing through your toes. You can just let your legs soften and relax. Good, again, big breath in. Hands are on your prop if you have one, and then exhale, start to forward fold over your wide legs. You don't have to go very far. It might be just a matter of 1 to 2 inches. But that prop is there to either catch your hands, your forearms, or if you're very, very bendy, maybe your forehead. Feel free to drop your chin into your chest here. This is one of our longer holds. So settle in. Know that the first minute or so is just transition. And then let change start to happen. Checking back in. We've made it through that transition phase. Are you still breathing? Are you still feeling that stretch in the inner and back of the legs? If you need to widen through the heels, now is a great time to do so. Be sure to soften your jaw. Try not to clench anywhere, the toes, the teeth, the glutes, the fingers. Just as you breathe, feel how your belly expands and softens. And try and imagine that softness radiating outward into the farthest stretches of you. Last 5 breaths. And on your next inhale, start to walk your hands back in, lifting your chest back up. Now use your hands to help bring your legs back to the midline. So maybe slide your hands under your knees, bend your knees, slide your feet back together. And then take a solid 15 seconds or so here to just intuitively let that posture go. For some of us, that's quite intense. For others, it's no big deal. So whatever you need to take here to transition out of that posture as we prepare for the next. Nothing off limits. And slowly start to make your way to a comfortable seated position. So while this is predominantly a lower body focused class, I did want to throw in a little bit of something for the neck and shoulders. So as you sit comfortably, it might be with legs crossed, it might be with legs out in front of you. You're going to bring your hands behind your back and interlace your knuckles. Wonderful. Now with that interlace, start to bring both hands over towards your right hip. So you're gonna slide the hands over. It's gonna be your, let's see, outer left wrist is gonna be pressing into maybe the back of your right hip. Good, now take a big breath in. And as you exhale, right ear towards right shoulder. You should be feeling at least a little bit of a stretch along the left side of your neck. If those instructions were a little confusing, I'm going to rotate so that you get a different view. We interlace the fingers behind the back. We went around to that first side. Now fine tune the position of your chin here. Maybe rotate your chin a little closer to your chest. And then a little higher up towards the ceiling. Do a little yes and no with your head. And then bring your head right back through center. We're going to switch sides. So hands come around to the left side this time. Outer right wrist is going to press against the back of your left hip. Big breath in. And then exhale, left ear towards left shoulder. Eyes can close here. Maybe notice any tingling in the fingers, or if this side is a little more intense or less intense than the first. Dropping your chin more toward your chest. And then rotating it up towards the ceiling. Little yes and no. And then bring your head right back through center. Slowly release the arms out to the side. And just give yourself a moment to recalibrate. So let your hands rest on your knees or your thighs, eyes closed. Feeling the weight of your hips press into the floor. Mentally preparing to slide your mat over to a wall in just a moment. Not rushing, just allowing yourself to maintain this pace. Deep breath in, start to blink your eyes open. And exhale, big open mouth sigh. So for our last posture together, before Shavasana that is, you're gonna wanna either move over to a wall. If you have hardwood floors or tile floors, you might wanna take your mat with you. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna go ahead and move my mat so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm gonna put the short end of my mat up against the wall. Awesome. And then once you get yourself settled, we're headed into a variation of happy baby at the wall. So this gets really deeply into those outer hip tissues. It puts a bit of dorsiflexion on the ankles, so a little bit more foot stretching here, but essentially you're mostly gonna feel this inner thighs, outer thighs. If that is different for you, that's not necessarily wrong. So I'd love to demonstrate first, if you've done this already or if you took a class with me earlier this week, we're just revisiting this posture. So this is what we're headed for. You're gonna bring yourself to lie on your back with your bum up against the wall. And you're gonna start with your legs straight up towards the ceiling. Now, apologies if it's difficult to hear me here. Feel free to adjust your volume if you need to. Now, what I'm gonna do next is bend my knees and start to walk my feet a little wider. Now, here, I'm pretty solid. I don't feel a ton of stretch. So what I'm gonna do is let my knees drop a little bit wider and then let my feet kind of follow that motion. So gravity is really gonna help you determine how wide your feet need to go. And just notice that this is a variation of our happy baby posture. So rather than feet towards the ceiling, feet are on the floor, feet are on the wall. Do your best to seal your entire foot to the surface of the wall. Go ahead, take a couple minutes to get yourself set up. Now, if you're pregnant, just know that we won't be flat on our backs for more than about 4 to 5 minutes. If you are in your 3rd trimester and this is incredibly uncomfortable to rest on your back, here is something to do instead. You're gonna sit nice and tall on your mat, bring the soles of your feet together, starting with your heels in quite close to your pelvis. You're gonna fold yourself forward and ask, do I feel that in my inner thighs? If the answer is no, sit up, slide your heels farther forward, and then fold once again. Essentially finding that perfect stretch by sliding your heels forward, maybe sliding them back just a little bit until you really feel lots of stretch in the inner and outer hip. Now for those of you at the wall, just kind of gauge what you're feeling, where you're feeling it. Remember that that first minute or so really is just transition. So if it feels Very spicy if it feels like there's a lot going on in your hips, your glutes, the thighs. Just give yourself a chance to acclimate. Breathe slowly. It's in these potentially intense moments that our minds tend to really rev the volume. So as your body begins to accept change, maybe use this time to come back to this idea of a vow, vrata. What is it in your life that is most important to you? And are you actively participating and making decisions to keep those important things sacred and nurtured? In other words, how are you showing up to be about what is important to you? Sometimes taking action doesn't always feel fantastic in the beginning, or in the middle, or in the end. And the vows that we make throughout life, some of the most sacred vows are some of the most difficult to stay committed and engaged with. But there's a reason that they are sacred. There's a reason that staying committed is worth it. So no matter how you feel, where you are, what thoughts are going through your mind, stay committed for just 5 more breaths. Notice if anything changes, if anything shifts. What thoughts roll through and fade away. And slowly on your next inhale, start to slide your legs straight up the wall once again. Lovely. Maybe tapping your heels against the wall or doing a little pedaling motion, pointing, flexing through your ankles. Lovely. Now, if you're pregnant and you did that exercise at the wall, go ahead and roll all the way onto one side to let it go. If you're not pregnant, what you're gonna do here is bend your knees once again, bring the soles of your feet to the wall, bring your arms to a T, and we'll head into a very short little twist. So sliding both of your feet over to the right, let your legs drop heavy to the right side. Your feet might come all the way down to the floor, they might not. Take a peek over your left shoulder. Try to reach your hands a little bit farther away from each other. Spread your palms wide. And then chin back through center, legs back through center. Second side. Dropping your knees, sliding your feet over to the left. Chin rotates over to the right. Nice. Again, roll your shoulders away from your ears. Reach your hands away from one another. Spread your fingers wide. And then on your next inhale, come on back through center. If you enjoy legs, take that as your Shavasana option today. You're already there. If you would prefer a different or more traditional variation of Shavasana, maybe you take a moment, move yourself away from your wall. You don't always have to move your mat exactly back where it was, but give yourself enough space where you can rest on your back or on your side. Traditional Shavasana finds flat on your back with outstretched limbs to be the most comfortable posture. Although this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. So if resting flat on your back doesn't feel awesome, you can always bend your knees. You can always send your arms up overhead or maybe to your belly. You might even find that rolling to your side in the fetal position allows you to relax the most. Last but not least, if none of those are serving you, you might come to a seated posture, back against the wall, or just freely sitting in your space. Knowing that everything that has led you to this moment has been preparing you for this posture, one of our most difficult. Our society highly undervalues stillness. So allow this to be the real practice. You've invited change. You've contemplated sacred vows, being about your word. Now it's time to rest. This Shavasana represents simultaneously the end of our practice and the beginning of whatever is the next step for you. So whether that next step is whatever is next on your calendar, whatever is next in your mental processes, perhaps it's whatever is next in this intuitive experience that we call everyday life. So starting to embrace the duality of this end, transitioning into a beginning, take a deep breath in and a full breath out. Start to wake your physical body back up. Only moving as quickly as feels correct for you. Eventually, maybe rolling to a side, or if coming right up through center is most comfortable for you, that is just fine as well. And pausing in a comfortable seat just long enough to close our practice. Palms come together, tips of the thumbs hover over the center of the chest, using this outward gesture of gratitude to be thankful for your existence. Find gratitude for the practice of yoga. And then find a little extra thankfulness for the way that those things have come together. Yoga, after all, means to unite, to unify. So thank you for taking time to unite your brain, your body, and your breath in this way. Until next time, namaste.